Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC on Fox 22, Waterson versus VanZant, which happens on December 17th on Fox. Before I get into that, I'd like to plug a couple things though. First will be my author's website at www.chrismodong.com. Next thing I'd like to plug is my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner, which you can find on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Podbean, which entails me reading like stories, like original stories, and doing like manga, anime reviews, and whatnot. Links to these will be provided on the description. Okay, on to this card. You know, the main card is really odd. It is honestly, I'm just gonna say it right now. It's a very pretty card. I don't know what else to say. It's like you're featuring a lot of like the fighters that can be on a cover of a magazine. Pretty much Alan Jouban, Northcutt, VanZant, Waterson, Um, it kind of seems that, and it's at the absence of divisional relevance per se. I mean, Van Zant's a top 10 strawweight, but she's not like a top 5. Northcutt and Gall are still super new. Gall has notoriety fighting CM Punk and beating him. Faber versus Pickett, I mean, it doesn't have divisional relevance. They're both just going to retire. And Faber especially is like really popular. And Jouban's a fun action fighter, but he's been something of a mid-tier guy. Mike Perry's a good up-and-comer, though. He's a guy that's actually been impressing me. And he's a guy, oh man, there's certain guys that I underestimate. Mike Perry is one of those guys. Oh man, I like, when people ask me, hey, what's a good upset? I'm like, like every time Mike Perry's fought a card, and they ask me, hey, what's a good upset pick? I'm like, oh, Mike Perry. Like, that guy always can do it. That guy can always win. And then he always ends up winning, getting the knockout. So yeah, I can't pick his fights to save my life. The undercard's actually got some decent prospects. I have Paul Craig, he's from Scotland. I want some footage of him. He's fighting Henrique de Silva, who's one of those new, young, awkward, light heavyweights I've been talking about. Miller versus Hirota is kind of there. Barberena versus Covington's prospect versus veteran. Moontasri versus Morono could be a fun fight. Emmett's a good prospect. Holtzman, I don't know, at 30 some odd years old, he's much of a prospect. Aldana versus Smith is going to be fun, though, and I'm very high on Irene Aldana. But, and the fight pass premiums on Wineland versus Mizugaki looks like fun. So, let's just get started. Okay, in the main event, Paige VanZant fights Michelle Waterson. So VanZant just got that win over Beck Rawlings with the jump kick. That was really cool. You gotta understand though that she was getting boxed up before that happened. She was going for a lot of crazy stuff, and I guess that's within her style to do. She looks like she might have some power in her hands though. I think if she actually ever gets a technical boxing game or somewhat technical game, she might actually be able to hit hard. Um, she admitted to not wanting to bull rush into the clinch in the last fight, so that was good. I'm glad that's improving. And because she's thrived on bull rush, takedown, constant ground and pound, despite um, having bad positions at times. Like, not having bad positions, but having certain limbs or stuff in the wrong position that could get swept or something like that. She can get away with it and out hustling opponents. She's tough as nails though. That Rose Namajunas fight, man. I mean, she doesn't look like a fighter, but she has the mentality of a fighter. She never gave up till the fifth round against Rose Namajunas. She's fighting Michelle Waterson, trains out of Jackson Winklejohn. That's important because the game plan thing. It's with VanZant. I wonder if they put up a really strong technical game plan. I mean, Rosa Namajunas, above everything else, was just a more technically sound fighter. And in this fight, I do think that Michelle Waterson is going to be the more technically sound fighter. The biggest problem with Waterson is A, she is going to be smaller. She should be smaller than VanZant. And two, or B, she puts herself in bad positions on the ground to get submitted. And she's been able to squirm out of things. She has, like when she fought Erica Tiburcio and Invicta, you know? It's like she ended up getting guillotined. I think she almost got armbarred at one point against Penne. I mean, she ended up winning, but like she was getting ground and pounded pretty bad. And even against Magana, she almost got armbarred. She was in armbar position. I mean, she was getting armbarred. You know, like she puts herself in bad positions. Technically, though, I mean, her stand-up shit is a little more technically sound. Her kickboxing. Her ground game is good, but she can't hold opponents down very well. And the other problem, it's not a problem. The other thing is she is a really good scrambler. Wow, ooh man, now now I'm looking at this fight in a very different way. Takedown defense is going to be weird just because the size thing. I don't know if Waterson is just going to be so undersized to be able to stop the takedowns. Well, I had my heart set on Waterson here, actually, because she's just a more technically sound fighter. But you know what? I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna go Michelle Waterson to win this one. Even though she has been in those bad positions, I don't know if Paige VanZant is the one to A, put her there. She might even mount her. I've seen Michelle Waterson mounted by lesser opposition, but I don't know if VanZant can keep those positions as well if they go to the ground. Also, like I said, Michelle Waterson is really good at scrambling. The other thing is, I think Waterson's just a little more technically sound on the feet. Tough fight to call now that I think about it. Like, because I was just listing Waterson's weaknesses, but VanZant is not without weakness. I mean, like I said, she was getting boxed up. She was, she makes small technical errors that better fighters could probably take advantage of. Like, she would leave her leg out, like when she's in half guard, to get like grabbed and maybe even swept. For example, it's just she's been able to get away with it so far. Um, but yeah, tough one to call because the size thing really scares me. Yeah, I'll go Michelle Waterson. Like I said, I think there's a game plan. The game plan should really help. The fact that she can scramble really well and she's constantly moving. And I think she's just more technically sound. I'm going to go Michelle Waterson to win by decision. Next fight after that, Gall fights Sage Northcutt. So Sage Northcutt, his stand-up's good, but he is still very raw. He is over aggressive, and in the couple of fights he's shown to be really like when he fought Barberena, it's like he just kind of gassed himself out after the first round, trying to go for that finish. He almost got armbarred in his last opponent against Montano or what? Who was it? It was not that great of an opponent. But Northcutt, super athletic, strong kid, good elbows. Among other tools, good kicks. He actually has a mean guillotine. He can take the back. He can wrestle a bit. His takedown defense, though, is not very good, and he still doesn't seem to know what to do when he's on his back. Against a guy like Gall, who, I mean, the jury's still out how good or not good he is. I mean, he looked great against CM Punk, but we do know he is a BJJ brown belt. He trains with the Miller brothers, and he looks solid already. At the very least, He knows how to wrestle. He has a propensity to take the back, and it looks like he can strike a bit. And I think, at the very least, being able to get the takedown and being able to take the back should be enough to beat Sage Northcutt, honestly. And Gall looks pretty good at that, too. He looks like he might be quite a natural at MMA. That's Sage, though, might be, too. And that guy has super athleticism. So with that said, I see Gall being able to take the fight to the ground and being able to get the sub, especially if he takes it back. So make it Gall by submission. Next one after that, Urijah Faber fights Brad Pickett. Brad Pickett, fun boxer, brawler actually. His chin is greatly deteriorating. Both these guys are thinking about retiring. Wouldn't surprise me if both of them did. The thing with Pickett too, underrated grappler, underrated wrestler. Defensively, terrible, especially standing. Otherwise, fun fighter, tough as nails, super resilient, super game. Urijah Faber, good cardio, relentless about getting those takedowns, good top control, uh, good ground and pound, and his back control. Once he takes a back, he is like a backpack. That's a really mean rear naked choke, and a really mean squeeze about that guillotine. He said he's going to retire after this fight. He's also shown to have a pretty good chin, you know. He lost to Jimmy Rivera in his last bout, and Brad Pickett got just wrecked by Yuri Alcantara in his last bout. The way I see this fight going, though, is I see Pickett. I think Pickett's going to be the better overall striker, but Faber can hang in there. I think it's a grappling that's going to be really interesting. I don't know if he'll be able to hold Pickett down, because Pickett's actually pretty good at scrambling. He's not bad on the ground himself. The thing is, I can see Faber being able to get the takedown. And especially on transition and during the scramble, Faber tends to shine there too, getting the back and or getting that guillotine. I can't really see Faber beating Pickett standing, but I can see Faber winning on the ground. Now, I can see a lot of this fight taking place on the ground too. The thing is that Faber hasn't really tried to take the fight to the ground as much as I'd like him to. So I'm a bit curious to see how the fights are going to go. But with that said, I'm going to go Urijah Faber to win this by by submission. But I'm not overall confident with this pick. Both these guys are contemplating retirement. Faber is definitely a step behind where he used to be. Pickett is not exactly a spring chicken himself, though. But skill-wise, I think Pickett might, he's more the brawler. Faber is decent standing, he has some power, though. So I'll go but I do think this fight will hit the ground, and if it does, I favor there. So Urijah Faber by submission. So after that, Alan Jouban fights Mike Perry. So Mike Perry is the guy that I underrate. This guy has crazy power, really good chin, resilient. Gas tank issues I think they might be there. Tough to say. Because the way he fights, he actually seems to fight like a counterpuncher. When he fought, what's his name, the Korean guy, man, he was just blasting him, going forward. But he was hitting his last opponent really good on the counter. He was kind of waiting a bit, and then countering, waiting a bit, and countering. It worked. Hey, he won. He knocked the dude out. And that was pretty good. And the problem with Alan Jouban is that Jouban has really bad defense, man, and some of the worst first rounds I've ever seen. So, This fight's actually really hard to call. The thing with Jouban though is he has insane diversity and he's really dynamic. He has really good kicks. He hits hard. He has a pretty decent enough grappling game, and he's super resilient. He's a guy that will get dropped in the first round, come back. That scares me though. That really scares me against like a guy like Mike Perry who hits as hard as Mike Perry. I don't know if he's gonna get back up. You know, same thing happened against Tumanov. Um, but as far as volume goes, I think Jouban throws a little more volume than Perry. But we also saw in that Bilal Muhammad fight that like Muhammad managed to come back and beat up Jouban quite a bit. So picking this one's kind of scary for me because well, not scary. Like, I don't really know how this is going to go because, once again, I keep underestimating Mike Perry, and he hits like a truck. But then Jouban has just a little more diversity with the kicks, knees, punches, and whatnot, and uh, at different ranges. He can like in the clinch. Jouban's pretty strong. He can punch, but he can kick really well too. Mike Perry, so far, what I've seen is mainly punching. Defensively, both these guys can probably use some work there. Jouban's probably a little worse than Mike Perry, to be honest with you. On the ground, though, I think they both kind of cancel each other out. I can't really say one's better than the other. Um, Man, tough to call. And like I said, I don't. Here's the thing. I missed Mike Perry's last two fights, or didn't pick him right. So it's going to show that I can't pick a Mike Perry fight correctly yet. But I can't help but like Jouban's diversity here and his striking and his ability to work at different ranges. Whereas Mike Perry is kind of boxer, you know, more like punching range, more countering range. Um, so I am going to go Alan Jouban to win this one. I'll go by decision because Mike Perry's real tough, but I am not confident in this pick. Um, you know what? The fact of the matter is, if I picked Mike Perry, I wouldn't be confident in picking him either, despite the fact that I absolutely underestimate him. Absolutely. I recognize he's getting better. I recognize that he's got a good chin. He's game. He hits hard. And it looks like different aspects of his game are improving. Actually, he showed some grappling in his last bout, which didn't look too bad. But like I said, I just liked Alan Jouban to be able to like kick a bit more and stay outside more. But I do not trust Jouban to not to block punches with his face, pretty much. So, Alan Jouban by decision. Next fight that on the FS1 prelims, Paul Craig fights Luis Henrique de Silva. So I saw two videos of Paul Craig. He fought in Bama. One fight though, he got rocked, and then he got taken down too. But he's a pretty good scrambler. He actually has some really slick BJJ, and he's actually tall. Excuse me. He's actually kind of tall for the bit. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's legit, like a legit 205er. His striking seemed to need some work. I didn't think it was that great. I thought that his ground game, well, it wasn't bad. I just didn't get to see a lot of it. I saw a lot more of his ground game. I watched his last two fights. He won by triangle choke with one, and really nifty guillotine in the other. So he's real tricky on the ground. He did get taken down in one of his fights. I think it was against Carl Moore. He got taken down. First time he went past the first round. That scares me. Luis Henrique de Silva. Oh man, have I talked about this guy? Awkward, stupid, tough, terrible technique. It's got Ion Kutalava's a lot like him too. Just this terrible technique, but always pushing forward. Stupid tough. It is really hard to wobble this guy. It's not like he hasn't been dropped, but he has. And he actually has a pretty underrated ground game. He submitted his last opponent by armbar. Um, that's man, what a tough guy to get in your first fight in the DFC, you know. But a lot of guys like he could have got like Francimar Barroso or something like that, and that'd be kind of tough too. Because the thing with guys in the UFC is at 205 is what they lack in technique. A lot of times they make up for it in toughness, and everyone in this division, not everyone, but like a good amount of fighters in this division are tough as nails. From way up from like the number one guy to like the lowest guy. Everyone's like tough as nails, you know. Luis Enrique de Silva is probably tougher than those guys, you know. So with that said, I am gonna go Luis Enrique de Silva to win this one, just to wear down Paul Craig. He can outlast him, push forward, throw strikes, get the takedown if he wants to. I don't. Hopefully, he can avoid the subs because man, Craig's pretty crafty on the ground. First fight in the UFC for Craig as well. Octagon jitters. The fact that he hasn't been past the second round isn't a great look, you know. Um, it's not a bad. Actually, that's a good thing because that means he's beating the guys he should be, and he's ready for this level of competition because he's beating those regional guys. So it's a red flag at this stage of the game, though, because you just don't know how he does pass the second round. I'm sure he actually does fine, to be honest with you, but I like Enrique's toughness, forward pressure, ability to take strikes, ability to dish it out, and this pressure, pressure, pressure. And Luis Enrique de Silva to win by, I'll go by decision. Next fight, that Mizuto Hirota fights Cole Miller. So Hirota, a guy with a good left hook, decent stand up. His takedown defense actually isn't that bad, but it's not great. And he has a decent ground game too. He's tough, but there isn't anything that I can say that's like a standout like skill set about Mizuto Hirota. Cole Miller, his striking game's getting better, but when he fought like Alex Caceres, man, he looked like he was one step behind. He's not the quickest guy, but Hirota is not the quickest guy either. And on the ground, whether on his back or on top, especially if he takes it back, Cole Miller is a legit threat. That guy, I've seen him hit elevator sweeps from the bottom. He has a good back take game. Um, he's just not a very athletic guy. Thankfully, he's not fighting another. He's fighting another guy that's not particularly athletic. So with that said, I think he can do well on the stand-up, and I think he's better on the ground. So, might be the taller guy here too. So I like Cole Miller here. I'm gonna pick Cole Miller to actually do pretty well on the stand-up, and if the fight hits the ground, I think he might even be able to get the sub. So I'm gonna go Cole Miller by submission. Sorry about that. Bryan Barberena fights Colby Covington. Tough one to call because, man, is Bryan Barberena a prospect killer? Man, this guy beat. It wasn't just Sage Northcutt. He beat Warley Alves, and that was an eye-opening win. Thing with Barberena and these guys from MMA Lab, their strength is against the cage, man. These guys, there isn't anyone. Like I said, you go Barberena to Henderson, to Benson Henderson, to Caceres, to Mike De La Torre. I mean, all of these guys are so good at fighting against the cage. Whether their back is against the cage or they have their opponent's back against the cage. They are hard to take down. They are hard to keep down. And they have really good elbows against the cage. Bryan Barberena is no exception to that rule. Barberena is also as tough as nails. He has terrible first rounds. He is a slow starter, but he is always pushing forward, out hustling guys. And while it's not the prettiest thing, he's always on his opponent. And if guys can't keep up that pace for at least 2 rounds, they get buried underneath him. Colby Covington trains out of ATT. Strong wrestler, good ground and pound, improving stand up. My problem with Colby Covington here is that it really is a test to see how much he's improving. Because from a stylistic standpoint, Barberena, like when he lost like Chad LaPriest, is that the last time he lost? I think that's the last time he lost was against Chad LaPriest, right? The, he lost a range striking game, a technical range striking game. LaPriest was able to hit from range, get out, and just keep doing that to Bryan Barberena for at least 2 rounds. And Barberena just, I think he made a couple adjustments and that ended up winning third. But Barberena is not the type of guy that loses because a guy is trying to take him down all the time. He has good takedown defense, good ability to get back to his feet, and some pretty nasty elbows in the clinch. So that and the problem with Covington is that Covington's bread and butter is wrestling. His striking is getting better, but it's still not great. I mean, if you watch a lot of Covington's fights, and once he's winning, or the ones he's won in the UFC, it's because he's able to take his opponent down. I don't know if he can take Barberena down. I don't know if he can keep him down, and I don't know if he can handle the forward pressure and volume that Barberena is gonna bring to a young prospect like Colby Covington. This is why Barberena is just such a good prospect killer. Like I think he is like there's a prospect killer in just about every weight division, whether it's like Honey Yaya at bantamweight. Barberena is like that guy. James Vick at lightweight. Bryan Barberena is pretty much that guy at welterweight. Just the prospect killer. Timothy Johnson's probably the guy. Yeah, he's the guy at heavyweight. Like just they're generally tough as nails, and they always push forward. And all these guys are not the prettiest fighters as far as the way they fight. They actually fight really ugly, and it's really hard to handle. I am actually going to go Bryan Barberena to win this one. Like I said, Covington's strength is his wrestling. Barberena isn't losing fights or losing rounds because he's getting out wrestled. Size-wise, I think Covington's going to be a little bigger. Toughness, man. Barberena's just so tough as nails. So, yeah, with that said, I'm going to go Bryan Barberena to be able to push forward, defend takedowns, make it real mean in the clinch, make this fight ugly, and win an ugly decision. Next fight after that, James Moontasri fights Alex Morono. Interesting fight because both these guys are kind of on that like lower tier of the division. It's really tough to say like where they're at. I think Alex Morono has a little more upside. James Moontasri is a fun action fighter. He has that Taekwondo style fighting. He uses a lot of spin kicks. Excuse me. He actually hits pretty hard. His gas tank is not that great. His takedown defense is alright, but like when he fought like Alex Cowboy, I mean, he was just getting taken down pretty much over and over again. Alex Morono, his ground game is actually pretty good, and his stand-up's actually improving a lot. This one's tough to say though. Morono's also kind of, pretty tough guy. Moontasri is a little more flashier, so this one's actually really tough for me to call. I can't really say how the fight's gonna go, but Moontasri just seems to be the guy with more weaknesses as far as a gas tank goes, lack of volume, really. So I am gonna go Alex Morono to this one, just to do a little more too. Alex Morono by decision, not confident in his pick at all because Moontasri also he does hit hard, and he is creative enough that he can catch guys with something, you know. So yeah, Alex Morono by decision though. Let's try with that. Scott Holtzman fights Josh Emmett. Holtzman, another guy from MMA Lab, and actually he's very much like that. His stand-up's improving, but he's mainly a guy that will grind up against a cage, force a takedown, and work from there. I mean, that's kind of his game right now. And like I said, with the MMA Lab guys, all of them are good against a cage. Scott Holtzman actually is no exception to that rule. But yeah, that's kind of what he does. He kind of gets guys up against a cage, forces a takedown, and works from there. I mean, there's really not much more I can say. His stand-up did look improved when he fought Dober. He was actually getting out-wrestled by him, though. So that's a bit concerning. but he's a solid fighter. Josh Emmett, though, he is a guy that pushes forward. He throws a lot. I think, is he an alpha male guy? I think his wrestling is actually pretty solid too, and hits pretty hard. Beat John Tuck in his last bout. He kind of swarmed him too. Um, and that's pretty much what I think Josh Emmett's going to be able to do here. Just be able to get opportunistic takedowns, swarm Holtzman a bit. I think Holtzman will be able to fight well, but I can see Emmett pressuring just a bit more and be able to get his strikes in. So I am going to go with Josh Emmett to win this one. I'll go by decision. Holtzman's a tough guy. Next one after Irene Aldana fights Leslie Smith. Leslie Smith, brawler. What can I say? She'll aim for the body. She's not always technically sound. If she can get her opponent against a cage, she tees off. Her ground game actually isn't that bad. It's not that great, but it's not that bad either. Irene Aldana, technical boxer with power. She'd also be the bigger fighter here. Her ground game, I haven't seen too much of it, but from what little I've seen from it, it looks decent enough. I like Aldana's technical striking. She hits hard, and her defense, her head movement's actually pretty good too. Leslie Smith's gonna throw more volume, but she leaves herself open to getting hit, and Aldana is there to hit her, or has the hands to hit her. So I am going to go Irene Aldana to win by KO or TKO. On to Fight Pass prelims, Takeya Mizugaki fights Eddie Wineland. Mizugaki, a solid boxer. He actually has a pretty good clinch takedown game, decent takedown defense. And his ground and pound is actually pretty solid too. He's actually quite underrated on the ground. I will say that Mizugaki has his chin checked quite a bit lately. He's been fighting for a while, Eddie Wineland's actually the same way, but man, did Eddie Wineland look good in his last fight. Showed good takedown defense, solid boxing. He always hits hard. He has that hands down style that seems to work for him. I actually like, as far as boxing goes, I actually like Wineland a little better here. I think he hits a little harder. I think he can go toe to toe, standing with Mizugaki, and has a defense, takedown defense. If Mizugaki even tries to take it to the ground, I think Wineland can do fine and defending the takedown. So yeah, I'm gonna go Eddie Wineland to win this one. I'll go by decision because Mizugaki could be a KO or TKO, but Mizugaki's so tough. Next fight after that, Fredy Serrano fights Hector Sandoval. Sandoval, team alpha male guy. Fought Wilson Hayes, got choked down in the first round. Not much there, but he's kind of like, because I watched one of his fights in the regional scene. Aggressive guy. He has a real short arm, so he really goes in there and just starts throwing. But his wrestling isn't too bad. Fredy Serrano is pretty much all wrestling, and his stand-up's really untechnical, so he goes for a lot of these unorthodox moves. And when he fought Ryan Benoit in his last fight, I mean, it was just it's such a weird fight. I don't know if Fredy Serrano can get his wrestling down on Hector Sandoval. That's the thing. And if he can't get his wrestling down, Sandoval is also just infinitely more experienced, or has 3 times more fights. So is it 2 times or 3 times? I think it is 3 times more fights. So the experience, just a lot more technical, too. I gotta go Hector Sandoval. Fredy Serrano's just too green at this time. I think he has really good athleticism. He's a really good wrestler. He has a hard time. He can take opponents down, but he can't keep them down. And stand-up still needs some work, so Hector Sandoval to win this one. I'll go by decision. And finally, Sultan fights Bojan Velikovic. Both these guys are big for the weight class. I mean, they can fight at 185 easily. I'm not actually too sure what weight classes. Both of you guys generally fight at 170. Velikovic has actually been doing pretty well in the UFC, even though, he's an okay kickboxer and a decent enough wrestler. I mean, really, that's all I can say, and he's big for the weight class. Sultan too, he's big for the weight class, a good wrestler, and has all right stand-up. So it's like I don't really. This one's really hard for me to call because they're both still like just okay so far. Can't really see how the fight's gonna turn out. So I'm kind of coin flipping here. I'm gonna go Bojan Velekovic because one, Sultan Lalayev has not fought in a while. Velekovic has been very active. I also like Velekovic. I think he trains out of elevation. So he looks like he's getting progressively better. So I'm going Bojan Velekovic to win by decision. Okay, to recap, I have Michelle Waterson beating Paige VanZant by decision. Mickey Gall over Sage Northcutt by um, sub. Urijah Faber over Brad Pickett by sub. And Alan Jouban over Mike Perry by decision. Possible KO or TKO. Really tough to say though. Next we have on FS1 prelims, I have Luis Enrique da Silva over Paul Craig. I said by decision, possible KO or TKO. Cole Miller over Misa Hirota by sub. Bryan Barberena beating Colby Covington by decision. Alex Morono over James Moontasri by decision. Josh Emmett over Scott Holtzman by decision. And Irene Aldana over Leslie Smith by KO or TKO. On the prelims, I have Eddie Wineland over Takeya Mizugaki by decision. Possible KO or TKO there. And Hector Sandoval beating Fredy Serrano by decision. And Bojan Velekovic over Sultan by decision. So that's pretty much it for my predictions for UFC on Fox 22. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my author's website at www.chrismodon.com and check out my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner, on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Podbean. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.